So this is going to be like a potpourri of topics for this episode, like a fruit salad of like issues.
Minus the kiwi.
Yeah, because Marcy's allergic to it.
Marcy's allergic, and it'll
Fruit
get all
salad.
yummy, yummy.
What's
show?
that from?
What show?
Come on.
Come on. Not Blue's Clues.
No.
No.
God, we all have children.
Yes. But we tend to forget.
Marcy,
what show was
fruit salad.
My kid
yummy,
used to...
yummy.
What show?
I'll do a Google.
Quick.
No, the Wiggles.
Wiggles.
The Wiggles? Oh my God, they were almost as scary as the Teletubbies.
No, they were good. I loved them. They were really good.
Yeah, the Teletubbies were creepy.
I liked it. Anyways.
It is the Wiggles.
It is the
See?
Wiggles. I told you, I know this.
Yeah.
3 children. You have 2 children. Like, what do you do when you're younger? You watch all this
You
stuff.
watch this stuff.
As you down f***ing whiskey, right? Your kids are watching the Wiggles, and you're like, "This is great, kids. You're occupied." Okay, so let's talk on a serious note, because somebody who I've connected with through our podcast, who's an excellent lawyer in Manitoba, James Lowry, who's a very good lawyer, does criminal defense work, often talks and comments about sexual assault cases and how difficult they are, sent me something this week where he was outraged. Okay?
And so were you.
Manitoba's governing New Democrats, you know how much I love New Democrats, ousted backbencher and defense lawyer Mark Wasylin, Wasyley, Wasylliw, from caucus on Monday, fired by the premier of being a micromanaging toxic bully. Bullshit. He is this member of their assembly. So this MLA,
Former now.
well, he's still a member. He's just out of caucus. Is still a partner at his law firm, which happens to be representing the convicted individual, Peter Nygaard.
Right.
So what first came out in the reporting was that, I'm so sorry that I may be mispronouncing his name. Wasyley's failure to demonstrate good judgment does not align with our caucus principles of mutual respect and trust. Caucus Chair Mike Moyes said in a written statement, the NDP said no further comment and would come and allegedly make other statements later. But this MLA believes the reason for his removal is that he butted heads with, I guess, one of the other MLAs and leaders in the party. But what clearly was a reoccurring theme was his removal because he was a practicing criminal defense lawyer in a party, gets elected as an MLA, was still continuing his practice. He's given up since that practice, but still is a member of the law firm. Because
associated with the firm, yeah.
Yeah, because being an MLA is a full-time job, but staying that as a partner compromised him because they didn't like the fact that his law partner was, or the firm was representing Nygaard.
Right. That means we probably don't have a lot of friends.
This is the most repugnant thing to fucking democracy I can think of. Well, I can think of a lot of things.
There's a lot, but this is Stasi
But this is
level.
absolutely fucking disgusting.
Yeah.
Talk about cancel culture.
Right.
So he's convicted in Ontario because of that trial.
Right.
Leaving that aside, he still has a trial in Winnipeg and still has a trial in
The States.
in Montreal, and then the United States.
Yeah.
Who gives a f***?
Yeah.
BJ?
What trial?
Sex assault trials. He's got a
Nygaard.
number of sexual assault trials
He's got pending
outstanding. Peter Nygaard, for things that are dated historical allegations.
Yeah, you have to tell the people watching who don't know.
Sorry. So Peter Nygaard, who was that famous fashion mogul in Canada, who reached unbelievable levels of notoriety and
And success.
success given his designs and everything, unfortunately, may or may not have, I'm not judging anything, been involved in very lurid conduct. He has been convicted in Ontario for sexual assault. 4 complainants, which are now victims. And he was sentenced recently to 11 years in jail, less pretrial custody, and he's facing further charges in Winnipeg and Montreal, and then will likely get extradited to the United States. So be it. Whatever. Still enjoys the presumption of innocence in Winnipeg and Montreal. Don't give a f*** about that. The issue was that this gentleman's firm was still representing Mr. Nygaard, and one of the stated reasons for ousting him was because of his firm's association was still representing Nygaard. So that's disgusting. And
That's
that is the
mind-boggling.
epitome of cancel culture that still exists, and it is against the presumption of innocence. And I cannot, so this was drawn to my attention, and there's been a number of rebuffs about this. The Defense Lawyers Association of Manitoba condemned the rationale for his ouster. When criminal defense lawyers are told that they will be punished for their work upholding important constitutional rights, such as the right to a fair trial, it creates a chill in our system of justice and sends the message that we can be punished for having unpopular clients, the group said in its press release. Nygaard, so let's give the background, who founded this fashion empire in Winnipeg, was sentenced earlier to 11 years, as I stated, in prison for sexually assaulting 4 women at his company's headquarters in Toronto. He's 83 years of age, and he faces other charges in Manitoba, Quebec, and the United States.
Guilt by association.
Yeah, so...
It's horrible.
But it literally is an attack on the ability of a lawyer representing an accused, and if they have a position, if their firm or he or is associated with representing an accused and has a position in government, that would somehow disqualify him.
Yeah, it's not even an attack on him personally. It's an attack on his role, not even his role, his firm's role.
Right, and I think it's pretty clear from what I've been trying to dig deep on this, that he's not practicing law and he's not involved at all in the defense.
Which makes it scarier. He's not actively practicing criminal law, yet he's being ousted because of his associations with his former firm.
And it looks like that this is like one of the maybe excuses used because he himself has been in conflict with other members of the party who are in higher positions.
Oh, welcome to politics.
No, but that's fine. But the tension that he's had with other people is not a basis to then make this decision to try and oust him for allegedly, the fact that he's not aligning with their principles. In other words, it worries me because it's beyond what the Criminal Lawyers Association has said. To me, it is an attack on the presumption of innocence and the democratic process that we have with respect to defending clients. And, in some jurisdictions, I can imagine, being a senator is not a full-time position in Canada, okay? Some may argue it's basically just retirement. I think they do more than that. And I think there needs to be reform of the Senate, to be frank. I think it needs to be an elected Senate or abolish it completely, because I don't think we should have appointments for life, basically done by political parties that are not decided by the public. But leaving that aside, imagine you're appointed to the Senate. You can hold other employment, and you're a defense lawyer.
Yeah.
And then you're decided to be ousted. It's decided you should be ousted because your firm or you are representing somebody that has a particular charge, which is not aligning with the whatever of maybe the ruling group. It's disgusting.
It's a slippery slope, man.
So,
I have a question.
Question from the audience. And he put his hand up. That's really polite.
I'm trying to be polite. Would you
acknowledge
characterize
your
this
question.
sort of politicization of the legal system similar to when Justin Trudeau and Jody Wilson-Raybould removed preliminary hearings from the process to artificially inflate sexual assault convictions, right? Are these two related? Because they seem to be.
You've just pressed the go button.
So it's an interesting point you raise. It's the same ethos. Okay, so the idea when those two geniuses decided to eliminate preliminary inquiries was because they did not want victims of sexual abuse to be re-traumatized by having to testify twice, which presumes guilt. And it's no different because what they are saying is that any complainant that comes forward it should be believed. And therefore we need to do everything we can to lessen their trauma and increase convictions. So that's disgusting, and it's repugnant to our process. Number two, the alleged idea that this MLA is removed because his his position doesn't align with their policies is something similar. Now, I will say, as a distinction, Mr. Nygaard was convicted by a jury in Toronto. So there has been a finding of guilt. So he is an offender at this stage and not just simply an accused before the court. But it robs the sanctity of being a defense lawyer of, I don't want to say the immunity of being attacked at this, but of the privilege with respect of doing the job that they do. In my respectful opinion, being a criminal defense lawyer is one of the most basic and most important functions in a functioning democratic society. Representing people who are unpopular, the vilified, the condemned. This is what we need for a functioning society. We need to be able to represent them. They need to be treated with civility. There needs to be a proper and fair trial, and we treat them fairly even when convicted. And when you take that away from a lawyer, you can't be in a public position because you're still associated with a firm that still may be defending somebody who's been found guilty. It strikes at the heart of our democratic process. So both of those concepts, the one where you took away preliminary inquiries and you take away an MLA's ability to be in caucus because of defense-related work, of those that others may objectify as being, criminals, etc., whatever, is wrong and robs us of our democratic process.
Follow-up?
Follow-up question from the audience?
I love having you here, BJ.
Yeah, it's great. We acknowledge you again.
In my experience, the larger firms often are afraid of certain cases when there's a political element to it. And is this now going to have that same sort of effect for smaller criminal defense firms that say, well,
No.
can't touch this because this might have some,
No.
and may not now. But is that what we're opening the door for down the line?
This is what, so it's an interesting comment. So, some law firms may make...
Repeat the comment so people can hear.
So the idea is that this will have a chilling effect on criminal law firms representing people and or other firms taking on certain cases because it can have adverse impact on their reputation or their role in the larger society. So my position is this: no.
We've been vilified forever by different groups in society.
Criminal lawyers in Canada, are used to vilification, and that just makes us even more stronger and angrier because we believe firmly in what we do. And I've always said this in Canada: we are very fortunate to have a very strong bar across the country. We believe in the rights of accused people, and we believe in the democratic process that we have, and we fight very hard. And when there is vilification and there's condemnation of what we do, it just makes criminal lawyers stronger. It just makes them get more angrier and fight against the system. And that's what you need for a healthy democratic process.
For sure.
Burry, talk.
Yes?
Say something. I'm occupying way too much. Go ahead.
Well, I'm almost ready to sing the national anthem. You've been doing such a good job of...
No, but does it not piss you off?
Yeah, of course it pisses me off.
So talk pissed.
It's like...
Be pissed, Burry.
I'm not as pissy as you. You know that.
I think this is you see it in the United States.
Kind of guy.
You see it in the U.S. But I have to say, Canada has been a very robust. We have a very robust, sophisticated defense bar, and we fight back, and we don't shy away from these things because we realize we're pariahs. And you know what? This is a funny thing. The defense bar,
and piranhas.
40, 50, 60 years ago, a lot of lawyers who wound up being defense lawyers were Jewish lawyers.
That's right.
Because they weren't allowed into the big civil firms.
That's right,
because they were Jewish.
That, yeah.
There's tons of anti-Semitism. So they became defense lawyers. Why? A, because they needed to make a living, but also B, because they believed in individual rights.
And they were good
and
at
fighting
it.
Against discrimination and fighting for the underdog, those who are discriminated against. And that still lives and breathes in the defense bar, whether it started from some Jewish lawyers or South Asian lawyers or whoever. That still lives and breathes very strongly in the defense bar, and we have a vibrant one. And so this type of is not going to do well, and it won't deter lawyers. So in my respectful opinion.
Did you hear what are the next steps? Did he indicate what's going to happen next with this guy?
No, I'm trying to follow it, and I haven't had as much time because I was in court today. But But it's just interesting. There was a press release, and so this was the press release from the
who? NDP?
No, from the Criminal Defense Lawyers Association.
Yeah.
And so they talk about the MLA was a criminal defense lawyer when he was selected by the party to stand for election. He maintained a criminal defense lawyer throughout his tenure in the legislature. The Law Association disagrees that representing an accused person in a professional capacity is grounds for removal from caucus. Former Prime Minister John Diefenbaker was a criminal defense lawyer. Prior to his elevation to that office, he defended individuals accused of murder, sometimes resulting in acquittals for his client. Every person charged and accused is presumed innocent. They deserve a competent defense when found guilty. Justice calls for an appropriate sanction, which must balance denounce and other things. When criminal defense lawyers are told that they will be punished for their work upholding important constitutional rights, such as the right to a fair trial, it creates a chill in our system of justice and sends a message that we can be punished for having unpopular clients. Blah, 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 which I repeated before. And that doesn't matter. And many defense lawyers across the province and across Canada have defended people who are unpopular. They've ascended to the bench. Many have remained defense lawyers because they love what they do. And this is just utter and complete bullshit. And it reminds me of, I can't remember exactly when, but the federal NDP caucus ousted somebody some time ago because of some allegation with respect to sexual impropriety. And there was very little by way of due process on that. So it's this virtue signaling bullshit that I fucking hate. And when it happened to this, this gentleman in Manitoba, it set me on fire. So I've tried to gather as much as I can.
We're gonna do a Joe thing. So stop, pause. Does this surprise you? What's happened in the slightest bit?
Actually, yeah, it did. I got to be honest. Like, I'm used to all sorts of vilification and stupidity, but this actually surprised me now.
That it happens
now.
Yeah.
I thought we were cresting to some extent in understanding that it's, the ability to defend people is a vital part of our system, and you can't vilify those who do it. I thought we kind of crested that,
right,
and obviously it didn't happen. Now, I'm not making comments on other issues that may or may not be at play in this situation. I don't know enough of this gentleman. I commend him for being a defense lawyer. Good for him being elected to the legislature. I don't know much else. I just hope to God that the bullshit about ousting him from caucus really has nothing to do with him being part of a firm or still maintaining some sort of practice. I realize that being an MLA is a full-time job and you need to devote yourself to it. And in fact, when you're voting on policies that come on, that connect to criminal law policy and the province, you're going to be in a conflict. I get all that. Leaving that aside, you don't oust him because of what his firm may or may not have been doing.
Yeah, it's not even him personally.
And it seems that there's more going on behind the scenes here. That this just may have been some bullshit that just came out. But I wanted to just flag it because it was raised to me by somebody who follows our podcast, who's an excellent lawyer that communicates with me often about work. And I just thought that this was incredibly repugnant. And it feeds into, what BJ said is we cannot allow political parties, those that are in power or not, to erode our rights in this country. That's something we got to be vigilant about and remain sacrosanct. These are rights that are sacrosanct. And it's vital that we protect these rights because otherwise we're going to disappear as a society.
It's scary. But we've seen these cycles, though. This isn't new.
I guess.
Not to this extent, but we've been vilified over the decades.
Yeah, look.
Hey, we go to the party talk. How can you defend someone you know is guilty? That's been going on forever.
Yeah, you always get that stupidity,
of course,
right?
Yeah.
But that's...
I typically answer it's for a fee, and then it shuts them down.
I have other things to say, but I'm not going to say it on camera. But the idea that you can be ousted from a public position because of your association or still membership in a firm because they're defending somebody is disgusting. And I hope to God that this is retracted or the NDP in Manitoba say, no, that's not why he was removed from caucus.
Kind of like Hunt for Communists in the States.
Well, yeah.
That's what we're talking about here.
And it feeds into our narrative about how there is this desire to eliminate the ability of people who are accused of sexual-related offenses to be able to defend people.
It's a good segue into our next topic.
Yeah, I think we should move to that one.
Smooth. Didn't even rehearse that.
Well, I'm going to let you lead with this one. But is there a good song to lead into this one about?
I don't know his stuff. I think Max knows his songs. Max, can you hum any of Puff Daddy's songs for it? No, he's nodding no. So Sean Combs, a.k.a. Puff Daddy, a.k.a. P. Diddy, a.k.a. Diddy, a.k.a. Petey, a.k.a. Love. I should do that with my initials. Michael Burry, a.k.a. M. Burry.
Yeah, give yourself a nickname.
Yeah, this is great. It might make me more popular. So, Puff Daddy, let's call him. What's his current name, Max? Diddy?
Well, how about we just call him Sean Combs?
Okay.
As noted in the indictment.
Yeah, but it's not as cool as
A.K.A. Puff Daddy.
Yeah, let's call him Puff Daddy. It just sounds cooler, right? Yeah, Puff Daddy. Reminds me of Puff Jackets. So Puff, not the Magic Dragon, but Puff Daddy is in quite the predicament. He's finally been indicted with a sealed indictment in the States. A wide range of offenses. Everyone's heard, including the girlfriend that he's alleged, the famous video we've probably now seen. Marcy has seen it too, right? It's pretty dramatic.
Yeah, so originally there was at least one or two lawsuits.
Yeah, it started out with lawsuits, and now it's kind of ended up in this. So he's got racketeering charges. He's got sexual assault charge. He's got basically every sexual assault charge under the sun in the States. So,
well, they have, in the United States, they have...
It's crazy.
Multiple options with respect to charging, but he's essentially facing charges relating to a sordid empire of sexual crimes, coercing and abusing women for years,
starting
while
in
using
2009.
blackmail and shocking acts of violence to keep victims in line. Charged with racketeering, conspiracy, sex trafficking, and inducing females and male sex workers into drugged, sometimes up long sexual performances dubbed
AKA freak-offs, whatever that means. It's kind of like a face-off, but sexual, I guess. I don't know. So it's basically two areas of charges. So he's got this set of charges that they're calling the enterprise, and that's not the rock. That's
can
not
I just interrupt you for a second?
I was going to say not the spaceship, but go
so
ahead.
We don't know nearly enough about this. Okay,
no.
It's definitely high profile, but we're partly raising this because of a juxtaposition between the United States and Canada, and I think that's my main interest when this happens. Because in the United States, there's lawsuits filed, and in those lawsuits, there will be a waiver of maybe, a publication ban. The complainant will be speaking about it. There will be some press release. The lawyers are quite happy to go on camera and talk about it. Then after that, there's a search warrant executed, which was executed
with a tank or something that looked like a tank.
Yeah, they had like a whole task force going. There's executed at his residences. And all of this is highly publicized in the United States. I mean, you can't get more public attention and more media on it if you wanted to. Like, that's just the way it operates in the United States. So when these charges came down, it's not really a shock because you have already had a preview of all this through the civil suit, and then the search warrants executed, and then what would be a sealed indictment now becoming public.
The leaked videos that we've all seen, yeah.
Right.
So it's really two sets of charges. So he's got the numerous occasions from 2009 continuing for years. So that's the racketeering. You're going to explain that in a minute. Set of charges that they're talking about. And then specifically this girlfriend that we've seen the video of where she's... I think she's being grabbed by the hair in the hotel they were staying at. So it's kind of like two kind of discrete sets of charges, obviously all linked. Explain, why do they call it the Combs Enterprise?
Yeah, I got to tell my son Ben his food is arriving at the door.
You are such a good dad.
I am, and it's always during podcasts. Don't edit this out. Ben, your food's arriving from Chipotle.
He'll be thrilled.
Burrito is on the way.
So let's talk a little bit about a class of offense that they have in the United States called racketeering.
That we don't have here.
Racketeering is a type of organized crime
RICO.
in which the perpetrators set up a coercive, fraudulent, extraordinary, or otherwise illegal coordinated scheme or operation, a racket, to repeatedly or consistently collect a profit. Narrowly, it means coercive or fraudulent business practices. Broadly, it can mean any criminal scheme or operation with ongoing or recurring profit. You can use that, and it's under the RICO Act, and you can use that for any number of types of
Trump
offenses.
was charged with that.
Yeah, in the hush money case, which was a fucking stretch
Right.
and absurdity, frankly. And I'm like, again, I said this before on a podcast we did. I'm not supporting any one candidate in the United States, but that was a fucking stretch. And I'm no expert in the U.S. law, but I'm telling you, that was a fucking stretch. So it's basically organized crime. Typically, you would associate this with, organized crime-related offenses, gang-related offenses,
This came into being to
mafia-related
deal. Yeah,
offenses.
this came into being to deal with the mafia, which is hilarious. Some articles claim has been dismantled in the States because of RICO. I suspect not.
Yeah.
Yeah, but still, nevertheless. So explain racketeering, though, in plain English, though. It's a group of people who
It's a
get
group of
together
people conspiring to commit offenses
for money.
for money.
Right.
Like we call it just general conspiracy. Right, to commit an indictable offense.
Oh, that's what you asked ChatGPT last week about, remember?
No, I asked for the hearsay exception to the
okay.
co-conspirators.
Close.
Exception to the hearsay rule. But leaving that aside.
Leaving that aside.
Anyway, so he's charged with these number of offenses, and frankly, the allegations are very lurid. We have the indictment.
Now unsealed. Ooh, wrong paper. Yeah, now unsealed. It's really extensive. Members and associates of the Combs enterprise, as they're calling it, engaged in and attempted to engage in, among other activities, sex trafficking, forced labor, interstate transportation for purposes of prostitution, coercion, and enticement to engage in prostitution, narcotics offenses, kidnapping, arson, bribery, obstruction of justice. I think they just threw the whole U.S. criminal code on him. It's quite extensive.
So he's pleaded not guilty. He was detained initially by a magistrate, which I don't understand what that position is in the United States. But then there was an appeal today to a judge in a higher court, which was denied.
He was denied bail, which is... They had some concerns, flight risk.
It's very significant to deny bail
Yes.
in the United States to somebody who is a very known figure. But whether you're known or not, it still shouldn't be an issue. But they consider him to be a flight risk.
Well, doesn't he own an island or two, Max?
Yeah.
Yeah, so...
Yeah, maybe. I mean, but, in this day and age, is it that easy to fucking disappear?
No. Well, it depends. I don't think so. I had that in a bail hearing today. The Crown was arguing in at a serious bail hearing involving allegations of impaired driving causing death. And the Crown was actually a 20-year-old kid. The Crown was arguing the primary grounds. And I just stood up and said, he lives in a small rural town in Ontario. Where do you think he's going to flee to? And the JP was just smiling. Next point, Crown.
What's the primary ground in Canada on a bail? Just explain for everybody to
Oh,
understand.
primary ground. Is he a flight risk? Is he going to take off anywhere? And the JP was scratching his head going, he lives at home with mom and dad. And he's not going to be allowed to drive because of the allegations. Where exactly is he fleeing in northern Ontario?
Yeah.
The forest? I don't know.
Look, I get that people with money, substantial resources can
take off and
can take
disappear.
off, but we're not living in the same world we did 10 years ago.
Right.
And somebody of his ilk,
Sunglasses ain't going to cut it.
it's going to be kind of hard for him to disappear. But leaving that aside, he was detained, and that's very significant because it's harder to fight charges when you're in custody. He's pleading not guilty. He's insisting through his lawyers that this was out of a relationship where there may have been all sorts of sordid sexual activities or other things, but it's not criminal in nature. It doesn't amount to racketeering. It doesn't involve human trafficking or anything of that nature. So it's something we're going to have to follow
Closely, yeah.
But, and again, I don't want to cover this for the point of like just saying something that's popular in the media. No. But it's just like the shit that you get on the fucking internet in the United States. It's like the whole case is literally out there.
Right.
And the prosecution is talking about the evidence And part of the reason that they were saying he should be in custody is the fear of victims and I call them complainants and witnesses and other people and evidence that they had. And it's all through the media. So it's prosecutors said in court papers that were published in the media.
Everywhere.
And I'll juxtapose this in a minute. That they had interviewed more than 50 victims and witnesses and expect the numbers to grow. They said they would use financial, travel, and billing records, electronic data, and communications and videos of the freak-offs to prove their case. So they're outlining what evidence they're going to rely on, and we know that a conviction for every
years,
charge in the indictment will require a mandatory minimum of 15 years.
Right.
But let's just talk for 1 second, okay? So they say they have tons of evidence, and they have 50 victims and witnesses that are very concerned for their own safety, given they're saying that he is a risk to them, that he could harm them or whatever. What happens in Canada at a bail hearing, and would our media be able to report on the submissions made at a bail hearing and the evidence cited in the bail hearing?
No, because we'd ask for publication bans.
Say that slowly, talk to the camera and explain that, because this is why I just,
The States is
I
nuts.
love going to the U.S. Well, certain parts of it, I could do without their protests too for Hamas, but leaving that aside, it's why I'm not going to Manhattan right now. But
True that.
I'm just amazed at this.
It's a freak show. It's
So
a circus.
explain again slowly what we do in Canada versus the United States.
In Canada, either the Crown or us or both sides will ask for publication bans at a bail hearing because we don't want our potential jury pool prejudiced.
It's basically
that simple.
an automatic publication ban on evidence that will be called at trial.
Yes.
Done.
Done.
Blanket publication ban.
Yeah.
You can report on what the result of the bail hearing is.
That's it.
Nothing f***ing more.
Although we have seen the police get a bit, I won't.
Loosey-goosey. They put up press
I'll
releases
say greasy
ahead
you
of
know?
time.
They'll issue these press releases with the mugshot and the allegations and invite other victims to come forward. I don't like that.
When charged and released, but not with a bail hearing, there's no publication ban. So let's explain this for a second. Some people can be charged and released by the police and not brought into court for a bail hearing. There's no automatic publication ban at that point. Then they issue a press release. And in some of these cases, if it's sexual in nature, they'll say, if there's any other victims, please come forward.
Right.
Okay? We can debate that.
Yeah.
But they don't give a ton of information about the specifics of the evidence.
No.
And if you have a bail hearing, it will be almost, and I can't think of any exception to this, there will be an automatic ban on the evidence being publicized pending the completion of the trial.
If you ask for it, you have to ask.
Yeah, everybody sort of does.
Yeah, they
Okay?
should.
I can't think of a case where it hasn't been.
No, I know, but it's not automatic. We have to ask for it. A Crown has to ask.
So pending, because you'll hear the evidence come out at trial, pending trial. But we do that. Why do we do that?
Ask for publication bans?
Yeah, why do we do that in Canada?
Because we don't want the jury pool potentially impacted by the information. And we don't, presumption of innocence, we don't want people hearing about allegations that may not be true.
We don't try the f***ing case
In the media, right.
And, it's not like Mr. Sean Combs is like an unknown in the United States.
Right.
This is a gentleman who has, bad boy records, was an outstanding artist, still like his music.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, I'm into the 90s stuff, but anyways.
Okay, big shot.
Yeah, Mr.
What, because I'm old?
Yeah. He's undoing his top button. He's all cool guy now.
I did, okay, in any event. So
Are you going to put black sunglasses on any minute?
I might.
See?
So he's not an unknown. This is a very
No, where's he gonna-
well-known figure.
You're not going to disappear that easily.
Right. And so when you publicize all this information, and they do it through the lawsuits at the beginning,
Yeah.
you've got the lawyers going on media, you've got
It's a circus, like I
the
said.
details The complainant doesn't want anonymity, so they waive a publication ban. So the actual substance of the civil complaints is exposed.
Right.
Then you get the f***ing criminal case. Then you get the unsealing of the indictment. Then you get an outline of the f***ing evidence. I don't know how, for the life of me, you get a fair trial in the United States. Like, this just amazes me.
Hi, potential juror number 1. Have you heard anything about this case?
Like, where do you go? Like, do you go to the Appalachian Mountains and find a jury there? Like, what do you do? Like, what do you do?
I know.
At least they can select a jury.
Yes, you're pressing on my buttons today, BJ.
Uh-oh.
Yes, you can select a jury in the United States because in Canada, Justin
Yeah, here we go.
and former Minister Wilson Raybould got rid of our ability to select juries so that we could have a more diverse jury. And since that, I've only had one jury, and I had 9 white men, 65 and over, and 2 other people who were of ethnic backgrounds, and 1 had to be excused. So I had 9 white guys, 65 and over. Now, good jury. I did fine. But didn't result in the diversity that they thought it would. But we have 0 ability to select a jury in Canada. 0. And I keep saying,
None.
I will say this until fucking I die or this podcast is shut down by powers greater than me. But we have 0 fucking ability. And that's why when I did select a jury in that one case, the justice who was presiding over it, I was so happy and so impressed with him. He allowed us to participate. But that's not the rule.
That's not the default.
It's
No.
not. And he did a great job doing that because he wanted a fair trial. And he actually said, it's not my job to pick the fucking jury. This is something that the lawyer should be involved in, contrary to what the legislation is, right? So in Canada, you can't do that.
There's no picking. It's like, give me the first 12. What's there to pick?
Honestly, Justin, just call an election and
Well, it might happen next week.
But you know what? The criminal law policy is going to get pushed around by any party in power because it's not popular to have fairness to an accused.
Right.
Period. But I have not seen a government screw up the criminal law brief more than the Liberals. I mean, you can say what you say about Harper and his legislation, but the court struck down, the sentencing and the minimum requirements, and everybody paid attention to it. But what happened here was that the Liberal government under Justin Trudeau's, rule, took away procedural fairness.
Lots.
Which was upheld by the courts. So I consider this to be the greatest damage to our rights in the criminal justice system of any government I've lived under.
And yeah, it's been huge.
And it would never, and this would have never happened, under what I knew of a Liberal government when it was under the Chrétien regime and the Paul Martin regime, which was so much different fundamentally than what we've seen now. But anyways, yeah, so I digress. Removing our right to pick a jury, which was awful. And it was all limited in Canada anyways.
To begin with,
But in the United States, it's like, I'm just amazed. I could pick like 20 articles.
Everything's out in the open
repeating
now.
Stuff. What's racketeering? How does it apply to the P. Diddy case? Watch, Combs' lawyer says he's innocent. Like, it's just on and on. Narcotics, firearms seized, indictment says. They go through in the media in scrutiny of what the indictment says with respect to everything that's been seized. It's the firearms. That's why he can't be out because he's a threat to. I
know.
I don't know how you get a fair trial.
I don't know.
And I keep saying this. I go, for all the complaints we talk about sometimes with the Canadian system, we have a great system here. Don't f*** with it. No, I'm asking any government that comes in next, please, God bless the Conservatives coming in, please do not f*** with this system. It's a good system.
I know.
Remain appointments to be by merit. Yep. Please let it go the way it is right now.
This is your time to look in the camera and say, I'm going to vote for you if I can select a friggin' jury.
Bring. Yeah.
I'm voting for other reasons for the Conservatives. For a number of reasons, but I definitely encourage.
You just lost your leverage. Have you never negotiated before?
I have, but it's not like I have any negotiating powers. I'm sitting in my fucking basement, okay? I'm in my basement filming this. Like, what's my leverage? But, I'm asking not to f*** it up. Like,
It's fair.
you know, I get there may be amendments that are necessary with respect to some things regarding bail, with repeat offenders, involving organized crime and weapons. And I understand that there may be, maybe other amendments that are necessary. Overall, crime is still in very good check in Canada. We have a good system. We generally appoint judges who deserve to be judges, but we have to be careful about how we appoint them. Please don't f that up.
Thank you. Now we have a special moment about to occur.
I had one more thing I wanted to say.
You'll have to save it for the next episode.
And please,
Remember to like.
please, no, this is something important.
Okay, get it out.
Our provincial government, and this is something I'm very worried about. And let me preface it this way, okay? There's a difference between funding police services to be able to investigate and apprehend criminals, those who commit crimes, where you gather proper evidence.
Right.
And I think there's a difficulty in funding our police services and doing and them being able to do more important work to try and curb firearms trafficking and deal with other offenses, including organized crime, carjacking, etc. Because I think our government's been very lax about that. But blaming our judges
Ooh, not good.
and then trying to suggest that at some point we're going to out them, that worries me tremendously. And it may be,
What are you talking about?
well,
To the camera.
which camera?
There's several.
This one?
Your camera. You got to tell them what you're talking about.
Well, Doug Ford
Oh, okay.
has, talked about appointing like-minded judges.
Yeah.
Now, that's something that everybody thinks about, but you don't say out loud. And,
Right.
And I agree with him on certain things, and I disagree with him on others. I haven't met judges in Ontario who don't want to try and do the right thing. And there are wrongful accusations. F***ing period. And judges are not responsible for the shootings that go on in the streets. Okay? They're not. There are so many other issues that are at play as to why we have crime. It's not just about judges. We don't criminalize the issues or vilify judges.
Or us.
Well, whatever. It just makes us tougher. But I don't want to see a movement towards only appointing people who are crown attorneys as judges, even though many of the appointments I think are great. Defense lawyers need to be appointed too. Defense lawyers can be just as tough on issues as any crown attorney. And some will tell you, frankly, if you're running a trial, you may be picking people who are formerly crown attorneys as better people with reasonable doubt than certain former defense lawyers.
Because we've heard the stories. Yeah.
But that said, judges are not to be held publicly accountable in Ontario or Canada for their decisions like what they want to do to mimic the United States.
Right.
We don't want elected judges because that will lead to injustice and wrongful convictions and pandering to political views. And we don't want to vilify anybody who's in the judiciary must remain independent. And that's what I worry about. And when I see these differences between Canada and the United States, it makes me worried that we will go more towards a U.S. model. And again, as much as we complain about false accusations and other things, generally crown attorneys want to get it right. Generally, they try and act judiciously, and judges try and do the right thing. And we have a good selection process. But it's got to be based on f***ing merit.
That's right.
Okay? Not political views or anything of that nature. So I'm going to be quiet.
Okay.
We'd like to wish happy birthday to somebody.
Oh,
Get up here.
wow, this is so nice.
Max, come here. Happy birthday.
Oh my god, is this my big debut?
Yes.
Yeah, because we've had BJ. Max, happy
over, come
birthday.
over.
Happy birthday.
Max and BJ,
BJ,
you know,
come
who
for
had
the
faith
birthday
in
party.
us
Come
from the
around for it.
beginning. Come on in. Just take that off.
Just take
No,
that.
it's okay. It's okay.
Well, your hair looks great.
No, his hair's all squished now, probably.
Who have had faith in us and worked with us and do really well. Max, we love you.
We
BJ,
love you,
we love you.
Max.
Max, happy
Thank you.
birthday.
Happy birthday. You can blow.
4
It's
candles.
Not COVID.
Happy
birthday to you.
Cha cha
Happy
cha.
birthday to you.
Yeah, you hold the cake.
Happy birthday, dear Max.
Maxie, happy birthday.
birthday to you.
It's kind of
No, this is awesome. This is
Yeah.
so nice. Thank you.
like the Marilyn Monroe.
That's it. F***ing A.